Episode, do we need to go back to Fantasy Island? It's time for our summer for our summer movie preview, and we say yabba dabba doo to a new Flinstones. All this next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows, and if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at Pop Culture Cosmos, or wherever you get our podcasts, or the tremendous amount, because we're now a part of over 40 radio stations worldwide, and we cannot thank you enough. Radio Podas, just truly amazing to be a part of your station. I cannot thank you enough for doing so. Also, as well, I want to give a big shout out to, we're coming soon to WRFN 1020. Every single station that's out there that we're part of, we cannot thank you enough for allowing us to be a part of your great radio station. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. It's our own man indeed, the Drone Man. That's what I'm going to call him. He's our Drone Man at Castle PCC on the Twitter and Instagram. You got to catch what he's doing today on the Twitter and Instagram at Castle PCC with a K. You notice I like saying it like that.
Yeah.
It is my good friend indeed. It is Marcus de la Garza. And Marcus, glad to have you back, my friend. I know it's been another rough week for you. I'm sorry to hear that, but we're talking some great pop culture this time around.
We are, dude. It's going to be fun talking about, talking about all the movies that are about to be coming out this summer. We've got some favorites on the list already. I'm interested to hear yours. I've got a few that I'm really looking forward to here. Flintstones, though, excited to talk that. I've got a lot of good memories tied to that franchise. So, let's get into it, when we have a second.
Well, we're doing something a little bit different today because we've got some scheduling things going on here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So I'm actually recording this live back-to-back with our Monday shows. So if we have any issues, we do apologize for that. Everything should go smoothly, but then again, I say that right now at the beginning of our recording. So we'll see what happens. But it is going to be a great episode today for the PCC Multiverse. I want to go ahead and make sure everybody knows that we've got a great show lined up for you today. First off, we've got a lot of things to talk about when it concerns new shows coming to Fox, but they're not actually new. I'll talk about that coming up here in a sec. Sony has a game coming out for the PlayStation 5. It's an exclusive from the great studio House Marquee. Very underrated. They've come out with some great stuff in the past. House Marquee has been actually someone that I followed, a group that I followed for quite some time, and they're coming out with Returnal. So we'll talk about Returnal at length coming up here on the front half of the show as well. But on the back half, we've got a summer movie preview in mind. That's right. It's if you didn't know it, and no worries if you didn't, it is coming up on the first week of May as we're talking right now. And with the first week of May, usually is one of the biggest weekends of the year for the movie industry. It's not going to be this year, but it is going to lead us into the summer movie months. And we're going to be talking about some of the movies that we're interested in from May to September coming up on the show as well. But first, my friend, let's talk about some shows heading on the way to Fox. We're going to save the yabba dabba doo here for a second, but we're going to talk first about Fantasy Island. That has been rebooted by Fox as a series coming off the not so successful movie reboot that came out last year starring Michael Pena, Maggie Q, and others, which unfortunately was a great part of the not part of the Oscars this past weekend, but it was part of the Razzies. So This one caught me completely by surprise. They're going to put a young lady in the lead role who's going to be playing Rourke, which is going to be, it's great, because that's what they do. They go ahead and when they reboot things, they put either a different gender or different ethnicity. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. I have a problem with the fact that I think Fantasy Island is an IP that needs to go on its own fantasy. I don't know about you. I just think that it's not something that you really want to put your money behind, because as we saw with the money or lack thereof of success that the movie achieved or lack thereof. And again, it was a major part of the award ceremony this past weekend known as the Razzies, for the worst of film, not the best of the film in the Oscars. I really think the Fantasy Island IP is not that much worth bragging about at this point in time.
There is no fantasy left to Fantasy Island. I sit back and you kind of look and you really start to measure out why people do the things they do, right? And you look at Fox and he's trying to wonder, why are you doing what you're doing here, Fox? Fantasy Island, the movie last year didn't do great. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. Highlight at the Razzies. Fantasy Island, let's talk about it. But speaking of which, hey, man, we really should have put some money down on the Oscars last week. You brought it up in our Instagram conversations, but I mean,
got all but one, and that was the one everyone got wrong, which was Anthony Hopkins over Chadwick Boseman.
That was crazy.
And Riz Ahmed. Riz Ahmed was the second leading favorite going into it. Anthony Hopkins was third, and he pulled it off. Oldest winner ever. Everything else we got right.
That was that was so impressive, though, the fact that he did pull that off, get that win. I was sad that Chadwick did not take the Oscar for Best Actor there. But yeah, man, getting back to it though, Fantasy Island, really interesting intellectual property in the sense of it just doesn't die.
It just doesn't die. It's just, I don't get it. It was long dormant.
It was
for a long time, for good reason, because it was a very popular show back in the day on ABC. But I thought it had its day. I really thought it had its day. But Hollywood, they've got to go ahead and try and make something fresh out of something that was old.
Yeah, I mean, we went from 1977 to 1920 without a Fantasy Island, and we were doing okay without it, and it just proves that we're probably going to do okay without this TV show coming up. I hope I eat my own words here. I'm always a lover of undervalued, or I guess overvalued IP that's now presenting itself as undervalued. I don't know. Let's just call it what it is. Fantasy Island, you've got a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do to impress me.
Yeah. You got a lot of work to do to impress anyone that's out there, because it's just truly something I don't think a whole lot of people want to see. I mean, the excitement, I think there was a little bit for the first trailers that came out for the movie. I think there was some excitement behind it, but once the negative reviews came out and once the negative box office trailed along with it, now mind you, it was the pandemic, I think had a lot to do with that, and every other movie that came out in the first part of 2020. So that you can say is a wash, and maybe that's part of their thinking as far as the hierarchy at Fox, saying, you know what, that was an aberration. You can't really gauge any movie out that. Well, you can actually gauge Doolittle, because that was crap anyway. You could say that was trash any which way you say it. So
right,
yeah, that was trash regardless. But with something like Fantasy Island, I think it's pretty cut and dry, but still, I don't know what Fox is thinking on that end, but I know they're going to be thinking about something on the other end when we talk about the other series. But some final thoughts on Fantasy Island, because we've been almost talking way too long on Fantasy Island.
This definitely is my fantasy, talking about Fantasy Island for this long. But I will say that, the movie last year had its flops. Michael Pena, I really was hoping for more out of you as a actor in that role. But, at the end of the day, let's give them their shot. Let's see what Fox has when it comes to Fantasy Island, the TV show, and see what the reboot looks like. And I'll tell you, I'm heading into it trying to be as neutral as I can be, but I'm already not impressed.
I'm not impressed as well. But the other major news about a series that's coming to Fox is, well, let's just put it right out there. Yabba Dabba Doo! That's right. The Flintstones is coming back, I believe, as a series from all indications. It just seems like it's something that a lot of people may be interested now, because the previous iteration of the Flintstones, the movie with John Goodman, Rosie O'Donnell, off the top of my head, several other name actors that were part of it, Rick Moranis, that was, if you remember correctly. So
yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, see, that's something, maybe that's why he went on retirement for a long time. But anyways, that movie came out I don't know if it did that. I remember it not doing too bad money-wise, but not doing well enough. I think they did a sequel. They did a sequel to the movie, if I remember correctly. I think they did. If anyways,
we had that 93 movie. I'm just trying to think of what else we did after that.
Yeah, they did a sequel to it, and then that flopped from there. And there seemed to be very limited interest in it. But Elizabeth Banks, who is just a great star and also a director, want to give her props.
Yeah,
she's been in a lot of stuff from the 40-Year-Old Virgin on. Has done a great ton of work out there. She is going to be not only the voice of Pebbles, but she's also going to be spearheading this and getting this show up off the ground, I think, as an executive producer, as far as that's concerned. So I want to hear your thoughts. This has also been a while. I mean, it's almost mirrors what happened last year with the first trailer for Fantasy Island, where it's been this long dormant IP. So we'll go ahead and give it a shot. We'll rehash it and see what happens there. They're doing the same thing with Flintstones since the movies that came out over 25 years ago. So I want to hear your thoughts on a new Flintstone series that's coming to Fox. Does it stand a better chance than Fantasy Island?
I think it does right out the gate, man. If you look at what Flintstones did for animation, it set the stage for a lot of shows to kind of come in and do things that are still happening today. I mean, if you look back at what the Flintstones did, how it influenced other shows that were on at the same time eventually, and everything around it, you have that lovable dope of a father, and you've got all the action that's happening with the kids. I mean, dude, it really did, from an animation perspective, kind of set the stage. And I believe it was the first primetime animated TV show, if I remember correctly.
I think you're correct on that.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like I'm pretty excited about this new Flintstones. Well, actually, I think it's called Bedrock.
Okay, we're just leaving in the Flintstones. Yeah, I mean, it's a new Flintstones. It's in the whole hierarchy there. It's Bedrock or whatnot. But yeah, it's a Flintstone series. For all intents and purposes.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we made a lot of jokes in our household about my father being Fred Flintstone, and because he's got these big flat feet, and Fred Flintstone had to have big flat feet to get that car rolling. But jokes aside, I'm really looking forward to this one. Elizabeth
Well, they
Banks,
all helped. You got to remember, even the passengers helped.
They did. But Fred had to do a lot of the legwork because he had to go to work on his own in the mornings at times.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But looking forward to it. Elizabeth Banks has done a lot of great things. A lot of things that she touches turns into gold. From an acting perspective, and then just has some small successes, elsewhere. But really looking forward to this one. I don't know about you, Gerald. This one's really, it kind of touches my. It's got a little sentimental value to it, so I'm really looking forward to see what we can do here.
Okay, to give you everybody the actual straight up, the Flintstones movie came out again with John Goodman, Rosie O'Donnell, et cetera, 1994. And then they did follow it up in 2000, which shows you that they didn't have enough confidence to go ahead and greenlight a sequel right away, but it did well enough to go ahead and say, we'll get back to it at some point later in time. And they did 6 years later, although it didn't have the same cast. And unfortunately, it wasn't very well thought of. So from what I'm reading on the reviews and what I remember off the top of my head, because that was Viva Rock Vegas as far as the title. Yeah. So that one did not fare well. And that pretty much killed the IP for, as you can see, 20 plus years. So they are returning to it now. But the thing is, outside of the visuals that you're going to experience, because this is not going to be something that's a cheap project by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, in order to create that world of Bedrock, to create the world of the Flintstones, you need to go ahead and provide that whole prehistoric atmosphere, but yet somehow maintain it to have a modern type feel, i.e. the cars, i.e. going through drive-thrus, but still have that prehistoric feel. Like, for instance, the great sight gag that they've always had on every opening of their show, where they put the ribs on top of the car tips over. You have to have those sight gags and visuals in order to go ahead and show you that, yes, even though it looks in a way very physical, very, very, very distant, very, very prehistoric, it still needs to go ahead and have a modern type feel and combine those assets. So I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, if this, of the two between Fantasy Island and the Flintstones, aka Bedrock, it looks like Bedrock is going to be much more touted, much more endorsed, much more supported, because there's much more on the line when it comes to Bedrock.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, man. It seems like there's a lot that's riding, between the two of these. It's one or the other. It feels like it's a coin flip of a gamble here by Fox, and unfortunately, I think that coin's weighted on one side, and that's going to be weighted towards the Flintstones. If you look at the success from the '94 movie, they made $341.6 million at the box office.
Yeah,
I mean, this is an IP that's got some weight behind it, and
I think today that would probably equate to about what, 500, low 500 million, maybe even 550 million. So it would be a reasonable hit.
Right. I mean, like, this is some IP that's got some weight behind it. Not to say Fantasy Island didn't, but there's been more flops out of Fantasy Island as of late than there has been out of the Flintstones. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Flintstones the weight here as far as who's going to be the heavier puncher. Flintstones all the way, man. 100%. I think this is going to be, it's going to be some fun IP to rehash here. Whether that's in animation form, full-on movie, TV series, I don't care what it is. Just bring it out. Let's talk about it. Let's watch it. So.
Well, of the two shows, it's going to be the one that's most supported because, again, so much is on the line as far as from a cost standpoint and anything of that nature going in. Like similarly, like with Amazon and Lord of the Rings series, you don't think you spend over $1 billion, $500 million for the series for season 1, and also as well $500 million just to get that IP back to do a series. You don't spend $1 billion without going ahead and promoting the heck out of it. So we will see a ton of promotion leading into the Lord of the Rings series. And while it's not going to cost $1 billion, it's still going to cost more than probably the average television series, at least initially. So I think that there's going to be a lot more support from Fox for Bedrock.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Fox is. I don't think we've hit the nail on the head here with the Fantasy Island, but I think we've got it here with Flintstones, man.
I think we got it indeed. But everybody out there, we want to hear your thoughts on if you have to choose one, or maybe both. Let us know your thoughts on an upcoming Flintstone series, and also as well another series called Fantasy Island. And we return to Fantasy Island once again on Fox. So let me hear your thoughts out there. Are you interested in either a Bedrock, aka Flintstone series, or a return to Fantasy Island? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, there's still so much more to talk about on today's program. Before we hit you up on Returnal, my friend, I want to throw something by you that I didn't plan, but I wanted to throw that up by you nonetheless. And that was Peacock announcing that it has already gained 42 million subscribers off the get-go. A lot of that coming from The Office and from the WWE network migrating over to it. So I want to hear your thoughts when you hear that Peacock, less than a year in, hitting 42 million subscribers. Do you think they're off to a better start than maybe what HBO Max is doing?
They might be. The problem is HBO Max has that exclusivity to it. It's got a little bit of a higher dollar threshold to become a monthly member. Honestly, Gerald, I think that both of them are in great positions. I think HBO Max is doing themselves a lot of favors by doing the day and date releases. Peacock just doesn't have anything that can compete with that over time.
But and I didn't throw this in there, and I was waiting for you to see if you would answer
Oh,
this.
man.
No. Remember, when it comes to subscriptions, though, the free subscription, because there's, what you have is Peacock has, with its NBC Universal lineup, a limited amount of content that you can view free of charge with ad support. So that's something that HBO Max doesn't have outside of the free trial and whatnot. But HBO Max, like you said, is more expensive. There's not ads like for instance, what you can get on Peacock, where you can get a $5 tier or $6 tier, and then a higher tier without ads. The lower two are with ads. So I think it's in a way a little bit misleading, but it's also an encouraging sign that people are willing to go ahead and stray away from just Disney Plus and Netflix.
I've got a question for you though. Before we move on from this topic, how do you count for baked in subscribers? And I mean baked in the sense of like WWE subscribers coming over to Peacock and whoever's following The Office coming over to watch The Office exclusively on Peacock. And then on the HBO Max side of things, you've got AT&T subscribers that automatically get HBO Max now. So how do you account for these? I'm going to call them pre-built, subscribers. And how do you talk about your actual natural growth in the marketplace? I know those are numbers we will never see, but I would love to know if anybody's speculating about that.
Well, I can tell you as far as for the WWE network, we're talking between 1 and 2 million subscribers at the time that they migrated over to Peacock. So if they had 1 to 2 million subscribers already, that's something that's all going to migrate over to Peacock. So There you go right there. Plus, again, you have the free tier, which so many people have signed up. I mean, my daughter has signed up. I have got that now. So there's so many people out there that have subscriptions to the free. Again, it's how many paid subscribers I would want to know. How many people are at the $5 tier? How many people are at the higher tier? I think that's a bigger indicator of just how well or how much growth continuously Peacock will have going forward. Whether, when it comes to HBO Max, we talked about HBO Max, and it has its one tier, it's one price. There you go. Have a nice day. What is it? $15 a month, thereabouts. And with that, it's more cut and dry. You can tell exactly how well it's doing. But then again, it also has things with HBO Go, regular HBO. Does this mean HBO on cable? What, are we going to continue that moving forward? HBO Max, you have that. But then again, once those first run movies, and we've talked about this as well, stop coming out day and date, what is it going to be like? I think we're going to see the actual true growth of Peacock and especially HBO Max starting in 2022. When the WWE network, you can't just fold them in. You don't have another WWE network to fold in. You don't have, the Office to go ahead and bring in initially like you did. You don't have those great things on Peacock side. And then on the HBO Max side, if you intend to go ahead and just pop those movies right on the theater and stop popping them on HBO Max, what is your growth going to be like next year? That's what's concerning me.
Yeah, and that's really, I guess, got to be on the forefront of the leadership for Peacock, the forefront of their minds, man, because it's we're at a point now where if you don't have that year over year growth, you lose your funding. And so, it's something that could be very detrimental to them, if they don't find a way to really springboard their viewership or their membership going into 2022. Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack us, too much on that one. I just, I love talking numbers like that at times. So
there you go. No, it's very interesting because you got to go ahead and forecast the growth beyond 2021. So people, when they look at Peacock when they look at HBO Max, they have to not just see their success that they're having now, but going forward, what is it going to be like for them 2022 for Peacock, for instance, when you don't have The Office that's brand new and fresh out on your subscription base? What is it going to be like for HBO Max when you don't have those day and date movies that you're going to drop? There's going to be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 week period or more before they finally hit HBO Max. What is it going to be like as far as for the growth for these two entities? So that's what I want to know. That's what I want to hear about. That's what I want to see going forward when they list out those stock reports. So it's very interesting to see. They're both trying to put their best foot forward right now and tell you all the good things. But the thing is now on the horizon for 2022 and beyond, we want to see exactly where they stand and how they match up to Disney Plus and Netflix, and also Amazon Prime. You can't forget about them because they have, of any of these subscription-based outlets, they have of these streaming channels the best advantage because, again, you don't necessarily have to watch them with Amazon Prime. You're using it possibly for other means. So they always have that built in. So with Netflix, they got to keep throwing out like we talked about last week, $19 billion worth of content is what they're doing over the course of next year. With Disney Plus, they got to keep on throwing out with the stuff from Fox and stuff from Disney and the stuff from Star Wars. They got to keep throwing that out. With Amazon Prime, They just got to do enough on Amazon Prime to keep you happy, bring some movies like the one they just did with Michael B. Jordan dropping, as far as the Tom Clancy movie that he just dropped, and bringing the Lord of the Rings, which we just talked about. But again, they've got more advantages. They've got more built-in advantages with their service, so it makes for a great comparison chart that you can go ahead. But I really don't think you can see true residual growth or true numbers from these streaming outlets until 2022, when the dust starts clearing a little bit. What are your thoughts out there on the growth of Peacock and also as well HBO Max? Are you interested in keeping them beyond this year? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, before we get to the half-hour break and our summer movie preview, wanted to go ahead and ask you this, my friend. Are you excited as a PlayStation fan, even though you don't have a PlayStation 5 yet, and I know you're still looking for one? Are you excited that the PlayStation 5 is going to get, well, they're jumping ahead of the game with from Xbox, and that they're actually getting an exclusive game to the PlayStation 5 in Returnal?
Yeah, dude. So one of the guys I work with, Justin, has his PS5. He bought it from one of the third-party resellers that buys them off of somebody else and verifies it's a legit unit. So today we were standing in our lab and we were talking about Returnal, and I mentioned it to him. I was like, hey man, you should probably buy this game and play it and review it and maybe come talk to us about it. So Justin did say he would buy it, and we'll do a little playthrough. Maybe we can get a little gameplay going on Twitch via Justin or something. But I loved it. I looked at the trailer for it, and I love the concept. Every time you venture out, if you die, you go back to your starting point. Really kind of a fun way to build your way through a campaign, so that as you progress through your lives, you learn a little bit more, you do your own thing, and you gain the skills that you need to get past those checkpoints that are built into the game to keep you from getting too far along. Really interesting concept. I think that this is going to be a great game to showcase some of the graphics power behind the PS5. Just on the trailers I've seen alone, a lot of dark gameplay. And I'm not talking about, storyline. I'm talking about like literally visually. It looks very dark at times. So, if you've got one of those 4K, 120 hertz capable TVs that PS5 requires to have the highest output, I think this is going to be a beautiful game to look at. As far as functionality goes, third-person shooter, so interesting to see how this all kind of shakes out from a visual perspective. But I mean, like I said, dude, beautiful landscapes from what I can tell, and then some of the screenshots I've seen, great detail even in the dark areas. So
I've seen some of the video already, so the gameplay looks very interesting. I love how the fact that it's going to go ahead and mess with the protagonist's mind, as far as having her flashbacks to life on Earth and trying to incorporate that into the actual, and weaving that into the game itself. Even though she's on another planet, she's stranded on that planet, and she's just trying to survive, and go off and go against all the other beasts that are out there, and combining a lot of the action that we come to know from Housemarque. I mean, Housemarque has just been a really cool, really cool studio that I've seen a lot of great things from. I mean, people know them from smaller top-down games, the Super Stardust games. There's been great games that they put out, but nothing of the scale. This is a company. This is a studio that is putting out probably the largest game of their entire, spanning career, which has gone over 20 years now. So I want to hear your thoughts. They're taking a big leap into trying to become that next first party, this big AAA studio. Do you think that this will do it? And do you think that Returnal can be that really good game that people can get behind?
I think that Returnal can be that game. And the reason I'm going to say this is, and it might be a little bit of a decent segue into our next topic, but I think space is coming back. It's going to be that highlight of entertainment for 2022 and maybe the latter half of 2021. I think what we're seeing is a return to the idea of the fascination with space as a culture, as a people. And so, we've got a lot of movies that are going to be coming out. We've got movies that have already come out. I actually just watched Stowaway on Netflix last night. Kind of a cool sci-fi space movie, man. Anna Kendrick. But, I think this has the possibility to be a home run for the studio. And really, if you're going to throw all your eggs in one basket, from what I've seen from screenshots and a little bit of the video gameplay, dude, they knocked it out of the park so far. You know, I'm not going to say they have this thing 1,000% polished. You know, it feels like nobody ever does anymore at game release.
Yeah.
So, you know, this might be one of those deep cuts that over 6-7 months you watch the expansions come out, and maybe even some of the updates, and watch as the studio itself responds to the user base and really gives you the experience that you're looking for in Returnal.
Well, I'm telling you what, my friend, I am very intrigued by Returnal. If it does well, what are the critics going to say about it? Because I've seen a lot of previews going into it. I've seen a lot of footage so far for it. I am impressed with it. We've seen that this could be something with the dearth of new games for either console, that being the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. This could be an early hit for PlayStation, and one of the reasons why they're maintaining or could maintain the lead throughout 2021, because they've gotten the jump on Xbox on these first-party games. Now, mind you, it's not that many, but still, it is some, and that's something that I think people need to keep in mind, and why, well, as we talk to Josh, hopefully on our Monday show, why Sony is possibly taking the first leap ahead in this console race.
Yeah, dude, this is insane how Sony's getting the leg up here already with this console exclusive. I'm looking forward to it, and you know, I really feel like I just stomped on your beautiful exit there out of this topic, Gerald. So I'm going to say Returnal. I'm hoping for you. I'm hoping that you make Justin happy and you make me happy, and we have a great review.
What are your thoughts out there on Returnal? If you're a PlayStation 5 owner, are you going to be getting this day one? Is it something you're very intrigued by? And are you hoping for good reviews like we are? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it's our summer movie preview as we take a look at some of the movies that we're interested in checking out, and also talking about the marketplace and if people will be going back to the theaters this summer. We'll talk about that coming up next. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with the show. It's Gerald Glassard, along with my good friend, Mr. Marcus de la Garza, who looks like he's deep in thought there. You look almost like the thinker. There you go, the thinker.
Yeah, I was thinking through our next topic and about how I'm already feeling like I'm a lot more comfortable to go back to the theaters now that I've had my second shot. So,
and that's what I want to ask. Yeah. That's what I wanted to ask. You know, that's right off the bat. I mean, because it is summer. I mean, again, I've said it before. This is not like previous years, 2019, 2018, and whatnot, where you have the biggest movies of the year. In fact, Avengers Endgame, happy birthday, you're 2 years old. I mean, because it actually, this past week, it went through its second birthday because it was already out in the marketplace. In fact, it was supposed to be coming out the first weekend in May, as traditionally what the biggest movies of the year do, but it had to come out earlier. And I remember that experience. And Josh was here. We got to check it out firsthand. It was awesome. We brought the crew up, and we had this whole big crew and almost whole line of whole row in the theater. We were checking things out. So, in fact, speak of the devil, he is here. He's joining us on the PCC Multiverse. What? It is Josh Peterson. There you go.
It's a crossover.
I know. Look at this. The greatest
it's a crossover
of all time.
Yep. I was just remarking as we're heading into the back half of the show for the PCC Multiverse. I was remarking about how 2 years ago we were like, it seemed like yesterday. You and the crew were here from the Super BS Games Cast and also Topic Ocalypse. The Topic Ocalypse crew was here. We were doing great. Had a great time. Yeah, we had with the Retro City Games fundraiser. But the most important thing was that you guys came out and checked out Avengers Endgame. And that whole first weekend of May scenario, it just seemed to me like it was so much fun being part of the movie experience.
Yeah, it was. I mean, because I was actually thinking about that a couple days ago, where there has not been like a pop culture event like that since Avengers Endgame. You know, everyone thought it was going to be Star Wars, Episode 9, right? Was the last one to come out. Everyone thought that was going to be it, but that was disappointing, whereas Endgame was just like a fantastic film all around.
It was, and I enjoyed that experience immensely, and I cannot thank you and the whole entire crew for coming up here that weekend. Hopefully we will be able to revisit that once again, and maybe Marcus can join us, fly on that plane from Florida.
Dude, I'm due for a Vegas trip soon, so I would love to come do that soon.
That's the great thing about living in Vegas. You know, people are really dying to see Vegas. I mean, you. Yeah, so there you go. So
I mean, if I could come spend a week with you guys and do like 2 or 3 days at the casino, and then we can just do.
We'll never see Marcus. We'll never see Marcus.
You can find me at the craps table. I'll be standing somewhere between the $5 and the $10 table somewhere. It'll be fine.
Reminds me of my days when I was here and I had certain positions here in Las Vegas, and we would have to go. We would go as guys at downtown, and then one of our individuals who had so much of a gambling issue that he would be gone for days, and he would not come to work for days, and his wife would be calling us, hey, do you know where he is? So he was still downtown gambling in the same clothes that he wore 3-4 days prior. So that's,
oh my God. Okay. I'm not that bad, but
yeah. Okay. So I'm just telling you, I've seen both sides of the spectrum when it comes to Vegas here, the good and the bad. Believe me, there's a lot more stories I could say in my 25 plus years here, but need I digress. It is our movie preview. Want to go ahead and say how much fun we had back then, but as we're ramping up slowly, I wanted to ask you this, Josh, because I talked to Marcus about he's less hesitant now that he has the vaccine, now that he has both vaccines. Now he's more encouraged about going out. Tell us about your experience, about your possibility of you experiencing movies again this summer. And do you think more people will follow that lead? Either which way.
Oh, I was just telling my wife that she doesn't like the movie theaters, and I think just because she doesn't like the experience of like paying all that money and getting popcorn and all that. But like that's one of my favorite things, right? My first job when I was 16 was working at an AMC, and I just the smell and the atmosphere and the sound and the big screen. I don't know. There's just something about that I really enjoy and I miss quite a bit. What is it that's going to get me back out to the theaters? I do have plans as of right now. I would like to go see Black Widow when that comes out in theaters, because I don't feel like watching a film like that from my couch would be the best experience. As for fears around COVID, I mean, as long as it seems safe and the CDC is saying it's okay and people are it's done, the theaters are set up in the right manner, like I wouldn't have an issue going back. But again, there'd have to be something that would drive me there. It's like something like Mortal Kombat or Godzilla vs. Kong. Like I don't see myself going to the theaters to see films like those, but something that's like a big event film, not event film, but like a big film like Black Widow, that would be something that could draw me back to the theaters.
Yeah, you're looking for that really special event that's going to bring you back to the theater. And it's going to be kind of like a limited experience for you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that we've let what's the saying? You've let the tiger out of the cage. You can't. I don't know, man. You can't really undo what we've done with pandemic. We've gotten used to sitting at home and being able to watch these movies day and date. Right. I think
it's so funny. Well, hold on. I've been doing some promos for some new stations that we got, because we're now over 40 stations worldwide. And thank you so much for listening if you are listening to us on radio. And it's funny because I have promo cuts from both you and Josh on how the coronavirus has permanently affected how we watch movies going forward. I have those both. It was so funny.
Yeah, dude, and I'm sticking to my guns there, because I think it really has. If HBO Max could stick to their guns as well and keep a lot of their movies moving forward day and date, I think they would have a happier set of people coming to watch their movies. Yeah. It's kind of impossible to say, hey, get off your couch and come watch these movies at this point, now that we know that we've got the technology and the ability to watch these day and date.
Well, didn't HBO Max HBO's contract, I guess, with Warner Brother Films was that they would show these movies at home through 2022, and then people would have to either renegotiate or just have like a strict theater only date, and then maybe like 90 days. I think it was like 90 days later it'd be released on HBO Max.
I'm okay with 90 days. It's when we start talking about, it's a 6-month wait to get onto streaming. You've got to let it go through, whatever first, and then, eventually get to HBO Max. Yeah. 90 days, fine. 180, get out of here.
Okay, so I want to ask you guys, what is the last movie you saw and how much did you pay for it?
Stowaway, watched it last night, and I paid whatever my Netflix fee was, for last month to be able to watch it.
Okay, what about in theater though? Like, let's do a comparison here. Okay.
Tenet, actually. Tenet, I went and saw it at the IMAX in Orlando before it got re-shut down again last year, actually.
And you did not like that initially.
No, and I still don't know how I feel about it, man. That was a rough movie for me in the sense of I love everything that Christopher Nolan does, and that one, first half of the movie, it was kind of just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know why I'm sitting here. But
the soundtrack was the main character in that movie.
Yeah. Well, that's why it won an award for visual effects. So it was good for something. So
it needed more womp.
Yeah, needed more womp. But I will tell you, I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was bad. I don't think it's one of his best films for Christopher Nolan, but I do think it's a very good film to me. I've enjoyed it. It's long though. It's a long watch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret watching it. I just wish that there were times when they would turn the soundtrack down and let me actually hear what the characters are saying.
Plus, it's very hard to understand. I know people leave it right away because they just don't get it. First off, you have to stick with it. You have to watch it the entire way to understand it, and that's the way he planned it out.
Yeah, and I totally get that, dude. And we had that beautiful fight scene. What is it? Right in the middle of the movie, I guess it was. That kept a lot of people interested. For the latter half. Once I got through the movie, it made sense. It just, I don't know. I felt like it took us a long time to make that movie make sense.
Unfortunately, and I've spoken to this about with Josh, my last movie that I saw in the theaters was The Last Skywalker. I know, condolences to me.
Wow, man.
Right. I just had talked about that, and I completely forgot that I saw that movie.
Yes.
It doesn't speak great things about it, I suppose.
Oh my gosh, that was not set up at all. That was classic. I wish I could have not remembered that I watched it, especially because that's something we trashed at the time. You and I did not have a good time in that. I'm so sorry that the Star Wars saga, ended like that. As far as the Skywalker saga, it deserved better. But yeah, it's something that it's going to, with the movies that are coming out, they need to do something to connect with an audience to get them going back. There needs to be the movie experience once again. I mean, everybody flocked to the theaters with Avengers Endgame. Everybody flocked to the theaters initially for The Last Skywalker because we thought, okay, this is the Skywalker saga ending. Mm-hmm. We have to go experience it at the theaters. With Avengers Endgame, this could be the biggest movie of all time, and it was for a little while until Avatar beat it again. Need I digress? Please, let's go ahead and re-release Disney. But, that was a big experience. Everybody had to go see it. I saw it, I think, in the first 2-3 weeks. I think I saw it 5 times in the theater, 4 or 5 times in the theater, because I was just so entranced. I needed to see an IMAX version. I needed to see a regular version. I need to see a version with you guys. I needed to see a version with my family. So it was so impactful to me, and I just wanted to be a part of the experience. And I think that's what we need again to get people in the door. So I'm going to go ahead and describe some of the movies that we're looking forward to in the month. If you want to go to Box Office Mojo in the schedule release, Josh, if you want to go ahead and keep up with this, I'm going to.
Can you link me to that? Also,
can you link it, Marcus? Because I'm going to go ahead, Josh.
So my the last movie, I forgot. I've had a good story about the last movie I saw.
Go for it.
Which apparently was Star Wars, but I'm going to say the one before that. I went to see Frozen 2, and you know how much money I paid for me, my wife, and 2 kids to go see that movie?
$39.
$130.
Oh my God, no.
Here's the thing, too. You know what I didn't know about it is one of those fancy, is like an IMAX thing, but also it was like their roller coaster seats. Like they stuck you in these like flight simulator type things, and then like when they were sledding down hills, it was like tilting you up like it's one of those motion simulators. And when it started to snow, there's like little specks of things falling from the ceiling. Like it was a truly immersive experience that I never want to experience again.
Well, let me say this: the kids probably loved it, and it sounds like you and your wife did.
The kids were terrified. Like I had to hold the youngest one back because it was about to shoot her across the movie theater. Like it was a catapult.
All right. Well, those magic motion rides, I guess, is probably the best way you can equate it to. But yeah, it's something that we need that experience to get back into theaters, I think, en masse. I don't see anything on the horizon right away because the big movies in May, there's not that many. I mean, the first one that would be coming out, like I said, this would be the weekend that we would see the biggest movie of the year hit. And when your biggest movie right now that's coming out is Wrath of Man with Jason Statham, it's quite different. That's not going to get people in the door.
You know what's very beautiful about this time of like COVID is the fact that we're seeing films made by like actual people. Like we're seeing films made by people who are artistic and have vision. It's not just like, it's not a big budget thing people are putting out like this is going to make money. Like people are actually like taking the time now to make films, and they're getting eyes on them that wouldn't normally happen if this were like a non-COVID time.
Well, it's going to be something we'll have to wait and see if any of these movies are going to connect to get people in. I mean, Godzilla vs. Kong was a great start. That got people excited about movies again. That got people excited, or at least interested in going back to the theaters. Mortal Kombat actually was a good weekend because you had Demon Slayer, which is a big anime hit, especially in Japan. My daughter and I just finished the series on Hulu, and check that out if you're really into anime. I really suggest that. And we're going to go check out the movie as soon as we can. But that movie, and also as well Mortal Kombat, got some people in. But I don't see right away. Wrath of Man, to me, is not going to do it. And then you don't have until Memorial Day weekend here in the U.S., you have finally a movie that was actually, they were doing promo work for it already. And that was A Quiet Place Part 2. That's coming out later in May at the Memorial Day weekend, along with Cruella. But those movies aren't even even though A Quiet Place was a hit, do you really think that's going to get people in the door? And maybe some of the horror fans at least.
Yeah, it had a very niche audience. It eventually like grew in favor like Napoleon Dynamite did. But I mean, I don't see that being like the big blockbuster draw of something like, Avengers or anything Marvel or DC.
What about you? What about you, Marcus?
Yeah, I don't see A Quiet Place Part 2, being that huge draw. But I mean, that same weekend you get Cruella, and that'll be out on Disney Plus and theaters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, so that one to me is the big winner for that weekend. But overall for the month of May, I mean, the biggest thing you're up against is Wrath of Man and Spiral. Spiral's Chris Rock and Sam Jackson continuing the Saw, saga, but
yes.
In that Saw, universe. But honestly, guys, I think this is not going to be the thing that brings people out. You're going to be looking more towards Cruella than anything.
Well, I want to ask now, as we go into June, something we just saw trailers being dropped for, and that's The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I'm very surprised that the trailers just started dropping this past week, in the past few days. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see it yet, but when your trailer drops right around now, and the movie itself is just coming out just around the corner in the first week of June, The Conjuring is a big series, a big hit series. It's something that has grown into something that's been a backbone of horror movies now for the past decade. Are you surprised to see such a turnaround as far as it's concerned? Usually you're seeing like a 3-4 month out type scenario where you get your first trailer, then you get more hype trailers. They're trying to bunch it all up within the span of a 6 week period of time. Marcus, are you surprised by that?
I am to a certain extent, but I think that thrillers and horror movies are the biggest losers when it comes to trailer marketing in the traditional sense of being able to watch trailers at the movie theaters. Those are the guys those are the genres that really, really, really benefit from people being in those seats. You don't just turn on YouTube and casually turn on the Conjuring trailer. So it's one of those things that they're hurting, but yeah, this is a really, really, really weird marketing plan to me. I would have expected at least a headline to come out 2 or 3 months ago where everybody would have been on board with the early trailer for this movie. Josh?
Yeah, and like Marcus said, they do get kind of ripped off in the marketing department. But here's the thing with something like horror movies have the unique advantage of like people will watch them regardless. Like people sit down on a Friday night, and if it's a scary movie, they'll click on it. Whether it's on HBO Max or Netflix or whatever it might be on. I know Conjuring's still hitting HBO Max, correct? Is that?
Yeah,
that's correct. So it will get eyes on it. It will get viewed. even by people who might not even be looking for it. They'll just turn on HBO Max on a Friday night, sit down, and be like, oh, a scary movie, because people are more attracted to scary movies than like a some kind of like animated film that may
well, The Conjuring is a name brand now. It is a name brand.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. And like, again, though, like even if people don't see the trailer for it, if they turn on HBO Max and see The Conjuring on there, they're going to watch it regardless of like how well it was marketed.
And then after that, In the Heights, the musical, I don't know if that's going to bring in a whole lot of people. That's still up in the air. I gotta actually get a read on the hype on that film, because I know a lot of people are looking at Steven Spielberg's West Side Story that's coming out later this year. But In the Heights could be something that could surprise a lot of people. The week after that, on June the 16th, is The Hitman's Wife Bodyguard. I don't know. I mean, they obviously did well enough to get a sequel, but it's not something that I think a lot of people are dying to see, even though it is Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson and Salma Hayek, a great name cast. But we'll see how that goes.
Didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, they dropped a trailer on that a couple weeks ago, so that gives you kind of turnaround. But the one movie in June I know will be a hit and will be the big event movie possibly of the summer is at the end of June, and that's F9, where we get a lot of questions answered in regards to John Cena playing Vin Diesel's brother and why Han is back.
And why in the 9th movie we're just learning that he has a brother.
Exactly. So that's something I think will bring in people. I mean, do you feel the same way, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I was going to say. Like this, if anything can bring people back to the movie theaters, it's going to be a Fast and the Furious film, which is sad because if you were to go back like 20 years and say, or back when the first one came out and you're like, you know what, this is going to be a big franchise in the future, one of the only things that people watch, I would have been like, no, you're crazy, man.
Well, and Marcus, do you feel the same way? Because F9, I think, is going to be the start of the true movie season. I mean, usually it's this weekend as we're speaking, but I have a feeling that the true movie season will not start until late June with F9.
I agree. In Florida, we do have a huge drive-in theater situation here, so I think F9 is going to be a huge drive-in theater release for us, as well as just general box office. And that's really the start of the heavy hitters. Thereafter you have Black Widow the very next weekend, I think, or 2 weeks later.
Actually, no, it's 2 weekends later. Yeah, in between it is the Forever Purge, which again is a low-budget horror movie. Nice series, has earned a lot of money. Didn't really work out as a series, unfortunately, but it's something that it does have a name under normal circumstances, but I think is going to get trampled because people are going to, if they're going to go out and risk going to the theaters or go out to the theaters in this current climate, they're not going to go for the Forever Purge, but they'll go the next weekend after F9. They'll go on July 9th with Black Widow, because that's, like you said, Josh, you're ready to go for Black Widow.
Yeah, and that's gonna be, that if I don't go back to see F9, Black Widow is gonna be the one that pulls me out of my house to actually go sit in a movie theater.
It's interesting because after that, with Black Widow, I mean, your thoughts, Marcus? I mean, Black Widow, that is going to be Marvel's marquee release for this year.
But isn't that, it's also on Disney Plus too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It will be. Yeah, it'll be another one of those $30 rollouts on Disney Plus. But yeah, I think Black Widow is really truly the end all be all stop the press movie release of the summer. You look at it, July 9th, perfect date there. You don't have a ton that's really surrounding it. I think F9 is going to do nothing but build the hype to get people back in the theaters and set the stage for Black Widow at this point. So, if I'm not actually in a theater for F9, I'll probably be at the drive-in. And then the very next week or 2 weeks later, we'll be, just down the road, about 5 minutes down the road at the actual movie theater watching Black Widow.
Well, there you go. After that, you're going to start seeing a scaling up from the movie companies that are out there, because they're going to start releasing more name movies right after that in the middle of July, starting with Space Jam with LeBron James. That movie will come out on the 16th of July. Then you have Cinderella also coming out that weekend. So that'll be an interesting battle, because that'll be right after Black Widow. So I don't know if that's going to affect Black Widow or if it affect the movies, because you're going to still have a limited number of people going. It'll be a larger share of people going to the theater at that point in time, but it's not going to be the normal amount that we would normally see like we did in 2019. So it's going to be interesting to see which of those movies gets really hurt by this the most. Is it going to be Space Jam? That's also an HBO Max day and date. Then you have Cinderella. That's a Sony movie. So that's going to appear at some point in time relatively soon on Netflix. So it's going to be interesting how this gets weighed out.
Okay, sorry, I know this is a side tangent here, but you know what's I never realized is that Disney made a ton of money off of something that they didn't have to pay for. Cinderella's public domain. I had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it reached the Beyond status. Now Sony's going to try and make as much money as they can off of it with their version that's coming out in mid-July. And then the rest of the month has Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. So the Snake Eyes movie, we don't know anything on it yet. There's not been a trailer that's dropped for it yet. So we're hoping that it still comes out on the 23rd of July. Hotel Transylvania, Transformania, Hotel Transylvania, Transformania, that we'll see also as well. That's going to return as far as that's concerned. And then also you have, Jungle Cruise at the end of July. So you're going to start seeing a ramping up right around late June, early July. I think F9 is going to be really kicking this off. What are your guys' thoughts about Jungle Cruise possibly also being a big hit for Disney? Because I don't know if that one has been announced as a premiere day and date release. That might be a theatrical release only.
If it is a theatrical release only, I think we're going to be at a point now that a lot of people will have at least their first vaccination in their arm, if not both. That'll be a great time to try and test the waters and see if you can force the viewers back to the movie theaters and not give them that sample of the day and date release. Jungle Cruise, though, I mean, Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, I watched the trailer for it tonight. Looks moderately entertaining, and I'm for a ride that I do enjoy at Walt Disney World, looking forward to seeing this movie.
Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think personally, if you're trying to get people back into the movie theaters, it would be dumb to have a movie with Emily Blunt and The Rock revolving around the Jungle Cruise name and have it be a simultaneous release. Like, if you're trying to push people back into the theaters, this would be something that you would want to make exclusive to theaters.
Well, coming up in August first off, August 6th, you have The Suicide Squad. Right after that, you have Free Guy. With Suicide Squad, just want to let you know that that's going to be a day and date with HBO Max. Free Guy has yet to be announced as far as being a day and date with Hulu, which is where it would go. It wouldn't go to Disney Plus, even though Disney owns the rights to Free Guy. I'm really curious to see what happens with that movie. Don't Breathe, that sequel is coming out that weekend of August 13th. At least it's scheduled to right now. There's a Russo brothers family film. That's going to be interesting to see if they come out with that film. But since it's not been named, I think that's probably going to get pulled off the schedule. And then you have, for the rest of the month, you have probably the biggest movie of them all would be maybe Candyman or Reminiscence. That's something that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in. Reminiscence, especially since it's a sci-fi with Hugh Jackman, Thandie Newton, Rebecca Ferguson. That's some names there. The one movie I think people should not pass on, at least for the kids, that parents might be taking out, is the Paw Patrol movie. I think you guys are going to laugh, but Paw Patrol.
Gerald, I almost made the same joke about Paw Patrol.
That's a huge move. That's a huge series right now on Nickelodeon.
Chase is on the case, man.
Yeah, Chase is on the case. So even though it's in limited release, and I think for good reason there, because people, sure about, the vaccines and the family going and the whole 9 yards. But that movie, I think people should not sleep on as far as the amount of people going to this movie and the time it releases in the middle of August. So I'm interested to see what happens on on that weekend of August 20th. But then we get into the early September, and we'll finish our conversation with this, guys. And that is September the 3rd, a movie that Josh and I have been looking forward to ever since it was announced. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I know you guys have seen the trailer. And Josh, you and I, and Marcus, you and I have talked at length in regards to how hopeful we are for that this movie will be a big hit, but what it will do for the martial arts genre and how it will, I don't want to say legitimize, because there's been a lot of martial arts movie hits that have been out, but for something that could be this worldwide universe see from F9 be based a lot on international money, because a lot of more people internationally are more comfortable going to the theaters right now than the US market. But your guys, before we head on out, I got to hear your thoughts on Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings one more time, and your hope for it as a movie. Josh?
It looks cool, you know. Like I'm a big fan of martial arts films. You know, we've talked about that a lot. I love anything with Donnie Yen or Tony Jaa. You know, with Shang-Chi, it's interesting because like he, outside of the comic books, like he doesn't really have a lot of solo outings that don't involve Iron Fist. So like I'm excited to see him kind of like have his own thing, to like own his own property. And I also want to see how that ties into the greater scheme of the MCU, especially since there's talks about them rebooting all these like street level heroes that Shang-Chi so often associates with, but on a Disney Plus platform.
Marcus?
Yeah, I think visually the trailer was stunning. I think that as we talked about last week, there's an opportunity to really grow grow martial arts as a entertainment vector, I guess, in a lot of these movies. So I think that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings has the potential to really bring us back to that heyday of martial arts in the theaters. And honestly, man, I think there are a lot of people that are putting a lot of hope into this movie as far as being a great tool to, not tool, but entertainment tool to really educate, but also really just bring awareness back to martial arts, man.
I'm so excited for it. I am really excited for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I've already said that this and Black Widow are the two Marvel movies of the next 2 years that I'm looking forward to the most. And I can't wait. I hope this does everything that we wanted to and that we hope for, and that it will elevate martial arts films and the genre as a whole up to even a higher plateau when it debuts the weekend of September 3rd later this year. All right, that does it for our summer movie preview. What movies are you looking forward to so far in the summer? What movies will bring you back into the theaters? And what movies do you think will bring what movies do you think will bring a worldwide audience together to go back to the movie theaters? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, guys, it's been a great episode. I love the fact that the real Josh Shady, we got an appearance from him on our Friday show. Plus also as well, Mr. Castle PCC on the Twitter and Instagram. But guys, I know you got some things you want to go ahead and shout out to everyone. Again, we cannot thank all the over 40. We're now over 40 radio stations strong. For the first time ever on this show, we're over 40 radio stations worldwide, and we cannot thank you enough for our support. For your support, and also as well, over 120,000 downloads is amazing. Cannot thank you enough for doing so. But I'll start off with you, Josh, and then I'll hit you up with next, Marcus. Josh, any last thoughts on the way out?
No, I mean, again, like I always love hearing from our audience. Send us emails. Like I love hearing back from you guys and seeing what you guys have to say. Like the feedback we've gotten thus far has been pretty good, and we always want to talk about your thoughts on the air. So if you got something specific about anything we talked about, shoot us an email, and we'll we'd be happy to discuss more.
Did you get the email I sent you from Bill Leonard?
I did, yes. I really appreciate that, and I'm stoked that he's reading some of my other works out there. That's awesome. And
you can find a lot of Josh's work today at popculturecosmos.com. Plus, I'm hoping Marcus will make a appearance either there or on Twitch sometime soon. No pressure, my friend, but any last thoughts on the way out? You're on mute. We lost you. You're totally silent.
That's like the saying of 2020, and apparently it's the saying of 2021 for me. Hey, you're on mute, Marcus. I will say, though, on our way out here, I'll give you maybe my top 5 movies that I'm looking forward to this summer. Sure. Wrath of Man, Guy Ritchie. I really like a lot of the movies he's done in the past, and, he's just going to be working with Jason.
Are you going to go see it in theaters?
Not in theaters, but, I'll wait, and if I can watch it streaming day and date, I definitely will. F9, Black Widow, Jungle Cruise, and then obviously Shang-Chi. So Folks, please get out there to the movie theaters when you feel comfortable doing so, when you feel safe doing so. And like Josh said, please send us some feedback. We always love talking to you folks and hearing about how you're listening to us doing whatever you're doing.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Marcus was saying. And again, like Josh was saying as well, I agree. Please send us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com, or hit us up on social media. We're all over social media. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, @popculturecosmos, wherever you get your social media. So for Josh Peterson and Marcus De La Garza, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day. Yeah. And that does it for show number 1. So because of a scheduling conflict, it's going to be the Pop Culture Cosmos coming up next. Want to thank everybody who was watching all of our streams. There was quite a few people earlier, so we cannot thank you enough for doing so. But I think, Marcus, you said you're on the outsy?
I am. I've got to go get some rest. We've got our actual final day of our camera project at work tomorrow. So we're cutting 28 versions of the firmware overnight, and I've got to test all 28 tomorrow. It's going to be fun.
Well, I wish you all the best. But Josh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I said that sounds awesome.
Dude, it's been a wild ride, and I'm excited it's about to be over here pretty soon. So,
well, all the best to you, my friend, and have a great weekend. And most importantly, stay safe.
You too, and enjoy your time away this weekend, Gerald. Josh, good to see you. I'm glad we had this crossover, and let's do it again soon.
All right, sounds good.
Well, we could start Patreon. Hit. We might just do that. Do that.
See you guys.
All right. On this week's episode, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series are 6 months old. Who's leading the way early on in this generation? And what games are we looking forward to for 2021? All this and more as we once again delve into the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos and the over 40 awesome radio stations that we are part of worldwide, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's the real Josh Shady of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com. His great stuff that he does on his podcast, the Super BS Gamescast, and the concluding Topicocalypse. Plus also as well his awesome book, Congratulations You Suck, which you got to get today, which you can easily do on the intranet at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
What is up? I'm just kind of looking at or reminiscing the disappointment of today's PlayStation State of Play.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if we're going to talk about that today, but
we can.
And I was expecting a little more. And I know that E3 is coming out and Sony's doing their own thing, but I tell you, man, I'm just not that excited for Ratchet and Clank. And the other games announced, Subnautica and Among Us, it's stuff that Nintendo has already talked about on their own platforms. I was expecting more, and I think I was foolish for doing so.
Well, I know that they've got Returnal. Returnal for the PS5 is coming out very soon. That looks like it's going to be great. I mean, actually, it's actually already out when this airs. It'll actually be already out when this airs. Marcus and I had a long conversation on Returnal on our Friday show, the PC Multiverse. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you're an Xbox fanboy first, and I am leaning towards getting the Xbox Series right now of the two over PlayStation. But I am intrigued by what I see from Returnal. I want to hear your thoughts on a game like Returnal from the guys at Housemarque, who've done a sensational job with smaller tier games, are now going a little bit up in stature, trying to make themselves into a big AAA studio for the first party nature for Sony. I want to hear your thoughts on what you've seen so far with Returnal, and do you think this could be the next step for them?
Yeah, I mean, I forget what people are. It's like everyone's calling it like a modern roguelike.
Yeah, and then you go back in time. If you get killed, you go back. But then it's also discovering her memories and warping that because she's stranded on this planet.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the only time you can save your game is in between they have the levels set up as modules. So the only time you get to save your game is in between these modules. And I think that's like a really interesting way of setting the game up, because you go through these modules and you have to keep going back and redoing them. And it's not funny, but it's interesting that like as you come across her dead bodies and these things, like say you died and you come across her dead body, like she remembers it.
Yeah.
She has all these memories of her dying, and I don't know. It sounds very interesting. And yeah, I mean, does it look awesome? Yeah, it looks great. And do I want to play it? Yeah, I might buckle down here and get a PS5 here soon, but is it something that I think
I might buckle down?
Well,
like somebody's forcing you to do it.
Well, here's the thing. Like I'm looking, and I'll get back to Returnal in a second. I'm looking at all these the chip shortages that are happening. with the AMD.
Well, the rental cars. Rental cars. Yeah, cars. Period. New cars, rental cars.
Mm-hmm.
That industry has been greatly affected because the fact that during the coronavirus, the chip makers focused more on smaller devices, and consoles wasn't even among them.
Yeah, and so everyone's predicting that we're going to see console shortages and like video card shortages well into 2022. So I'm thinking that like now might be a good time to grab a PlayStation on the off chance that like they just go out of production for a year. So I've been kind of keeping my eyes open for them.
Do me a favor though this time, don't pay extra for it.
I know my wife still like gives me crap about that. She goes, "Is it your well, I was talking about the PlayStation. He goes, "Is it your price for a PlayStation or the normal price for a PlayStation?"
Gotcha.
Yeah, right. But anyways, we're going back to Returnal. I think it's a great game. I mean, I think it looks like a great game. I obviously haven't played it yet, and yeah, I do want to play it. But from what I understand, it's a little bit on the short side, and it's not like a $70 game, which is what they're currently charging for it.
Yeah. And that's something that people are going to have to realize, that with this generation, you are going to be charged. A lot of these games are going to start pricing themselves at $70. That's the first thing I want to ask you, because we're on a new console generation, and there's been talk about raising the prices now for a few months, ever since this console generation started. Now, virtually 6 months ago, as we're talking about this, are you okay with it? I mean, for me, I don't want to say it's bad. I mean, I don't want to say I approve of it, because obviously I don't want to pay $10 more, but I am not as, over it. I'm not as mad about it, because the fact that back in the early 90s, back in the mid 90s, I used to have to pay $70, $80 for video games. So I have already experienced that in my lifetime.
Yeah. So I am not opposed to it. I look at it like this. Like I have been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla since it came out in October. Like I am 93 hours into that game and I still haven't finished it. It's absolutely insane. So if it's a massive scale game like that, then yeah, I don't mind paying $70, because when you look at it, it totally equals out in the end. But if it's something short, look at like God of War, for example. Like I love the God of War games, and we talked about the last God of War quite a bit on this show and how great a game it was. But the campaign, like it's only got about 6 to maybe 15 hours. If you do all the side quests, it's got about 6 to 15 hours of gameplay. And when it comes to paying $70 for that, like I do kind of have an issue with it, but it's not a big enough issue to make me not buy it. If that's I don't know if that statement makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I know a lot of people are already up in arms about it, especially those games that are, like you talked about, are great in detail, but they're also adding a lot of add-ons to it, microtransactions, which you and I both love so much. Yeah, right. But if you're doing that and you're double dipping, you're charging people more and you're charging them a ton in microtransactions. Like, for instance, our friends, and I say that sarcastically again for the second time in the past minute, in regards to 2K, which has repeatedly said in recent conferences that talking about how well they're doing each and every quarter, that they are relying and recommending to all their games that they incorporate microtransactions. So we could be seeing, like, for instance, NBA 2K, which has relied heavily on microtransactions, be $70. And that's not for the extended version. That's not for the upgraded version. That's not for the special limited edition version. That's for the regular version. That we could be seeing a next console generation PS5, Xbox Series game like that, plus all the microtransactions that it does for 70 and the microtransactions. I think that's going to be wild.
Yeah, and have you seen like these gaming companies, these gaming devs or publishers come back at the people who are commenting on stuff like this? They're saying, well, we're not forcing anybody to buy anything, which I guess is true in a way, but it seems, I don't know, dishonest in a way.
Yeah, it seems a little bit dishonest. But then again, with 2K, it's always been a kind of on that borderline as far as the way that they treat and the way that they approach and the way that they recognize their consumers. I've had always some issues in the past. I've had some issues from the past few years with them, and as far as how they do business on that. But then again, that's 2K. People keep buying their games. They're going to keep doing it the way they want to. So
right.
I want to hear your thoughts though on this current genre, this next generation. It started out again, like I was saying earlier in the show, that it's almost 6 months old. It's almost 6 months old as the time we're talking. We thought we'd get the jump on everybody else because you're going to be seeing all these 6 months celebrations and 6 months retrospectives and 6 months. How are they each are doing right now? Right now, it looks like, from what we hear and all the press that's been given out, that the PlayStation 5 is the fastest selling console of all time. I don't know how it does that when it's in such limited supply. Maybe that's how they're relating it to, as far as, whatever that they have is selling out quicker than anything else. As far as sheer numbers, it's still probably being outpaced by the Nintendo Switch because you can pretty much get a Switch anywhere at this point in time. But as far as being the fastest selling console at this point in time in its generation, the PlayStation 5 is number one. Your thoughts when you hear that? I mean, is it kind of misleading? Is it kind of warped? Or do you really take anything out of it at this point in time early on?
I mean, like you said, it's hard to really see this happening because stores don't even put them out on their shelves at all. So how are you supposed to know what's selling, what's not? You go to every store and they go, this product is not available in store. Like, you go to a Best Buy, you go to a Walmart, Target, they all have signs out saying these products aren't available in store. So you have to order them online. So how do you know what's selling and what's not? It used to be, when the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out, you could tell what was selling better by the shelf that was empty, right? There was, it's usually the PlayStation 4s were gone more than the Xboxes were. That being said, I guess it doesn't surprise me that the PlayStations are selling more because you go on eBay or OfferUp or something, and you'll find that the PlayStation 5s are being scalped at a much higher price than the Xboxes are. So I guess that would mean that there's a little more value to them or a little more demand for them as opposed to the Xboxes.
It certainly seems like it at this point in time. So early on, we'll go ahead and give the early lead for PlayStation 5. And with the fact that what do you think that has really generated this early lead for them? Was it because of the fact that they have so much momentum from the previous generation and selling over 100 million units? Was the fact that of the two that they were able to release at least some new content specific for that console, the PlayStation 5, as opposed to the Xbox Series, which was mainly trying to get you to get into the Xbox Games Pass? So I want to hear your thoughts on what's really generated and got this whole thing started and given the early lead to PlayStation.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of things. Like you said, they had the only things that are exclusive to PlayStation. They're actually putting stuff out where Xbox has not. When is the next Xbox exclusive coming out? Nobody knows. Nobody knows at all. It could be.
Does that
October,
irritate you?
It could be, It kind of does, because it was kind of misleading, them saying we got all these things and blah blah blah, and the games are coming out. But I'm sure come holiday season, or my hope is at least that we'll see like a plethora of games being released. But PlayStation has things that they are actually putting out that are exclusive to their console, which I think is a big contributing factor. Another thing I think, contributes, is the fact that there's a big army of people who are, like the PlayStation fanboys out there. No offense to our friend Marcus, but there are people who stand behind PlayStation no matter what they do. Their minds were made up that they were getting a PlayStation from the moment that it was announced. And then, you also have the reading about things on Kotaku and Polygon about these big networks of scalpers who scalped like 125,000 PlayStation 5s when they were released. Like it's a whole lot of things, and I just feel sorry for the person who legitimately wants one of these to play with. And as we've taught, we've had the scalping talk before, but just still can't get one.
Yeah, and that's something that's unfortunate for either console, because either console have had issues of accessibility. Yeah. And that's something that we talked about just a second ago with the availability of chips and trying to get these built a little bit faster and a little bit more readily, so we can cut down on that third marketplace, not on that third party marketplace, and these bots trying to get everything and suck everything up so they can go ahead and resell it at a profit. Those things we have to go ahead and eradicate, and that the only way we're going to be able to do that is making these consoles more plentiful, and that's something that has to start changing sooner rather than later.
Yeah, as of right now, there is no plan to make that happen. Like if anything I'm reading sounds correct, or is correct, it sounds like there's going to be a bigger shortage of these consoles than anything, at least going into like 2023. And at that point, why you're already so far behind on these big releases that people are talking about. What is the point of even putting them out? I do like the fact that Microsoft is still putting things out on the Xbox that are also on the Series X. But like PlayStation, if you don't have a PS5, you can't play Returnal, you can't play Ratchet and Clank, you can't play Demon Souls, you can't play a lot of these things that are coming down the pipeline from Sony. And I don't necessarily know if that's Sony's fault, but it just this inability to meet the demand of the people makes it seem like putting exclusives out is kind of a waste of time.
It is, and it's just something that I'm very disturbed by. I mean, I know I spoke to TJ about the Xbox Series and getting one sooner rather than later, and I know I've spoken to you, but there just seems to be so much hard work that needs to be put into it. I'm still kind of reluctant to get it, even with Mass Effect coming in a couple of weeks' time. I am going to get Mass Effect Legendary Edition, but do I have to get an Xbox Series S or X in order to go ahead and play it? No. It would be nice to go ahead and do so, but I told TJ that I was thinking about getting one right around that time, but it's not readily available. And that's what's irritating, and that I now have to put in a lot of work. And TJ said, you know what, man, I can point you in the right direction of one, maybe, I'll see what I can do. And I've talked to other couple friends that maybe like, no, don't do anything of that nature. And plus, that's not a sure thing, because if he points me into one direction of a website that might have it, it'll be gone just like that if you even hesitate for even a second.
Yeah, people got these bots. Like I know people who have set up bots to grab them, and even like their bots are too slow to outgrab the other bots.
Trade in those bots. Those bots. But I mean, I want to know how you had to work really hard, plus play extra, in order to get your Xbox Series. How frustrating was that for you?
It was frustrating because, retail, they go out at like $500, and I ended up paying, when it came down to shipping, I almost paid $1,000 for it. And that was irritating to me, because I shouldn't have to do that. Yeah. And, like we've talked about before, this whole like COVID time has created a marketing niche for people to scalp things like this. And it's, scalpers are always out there, but I think due to the circumstances, it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse than it has been. And Microsoft, or I don't even know if this is Microsoft or Sony's fault, but like these retail platforms don't do anything to really stop that type of behavior as far as like, bots are concerned.
Well, it's because they've got their money. So they don't
Mhm.
seem really concerned.
They don't
And
really
that's
care. Yeah.
yeah, and that's part of the issue when Walmart, Amazon, Target, you name it, their money's already being taken care of. But thing is, it's hurting their own marketplace in the long run because these bots, they're reselling it for a profit, A, and B, it's not going to real customers. So how can they go ahead and have a favorable impression of you if they keep on getting, worked over each and every time out?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I totally get it from the perspective of somebody who's just tired of looking for it. And they're just like, at the end of the day, they're like, screw it. Why am I going to, I'm wasting my time, and I'm not at the point where I'm ready to waste my money by paying $300 or $400 extra on something that I shouldn't have to pay that much for. Because a lot of people who actually play games and not scalp things, a lot of people like that, this is paying $500 is a lot for them. And plus, when you buy the game and the controller, like this is no small purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of concerned that this is going to continue for at least the foreseeable future and might actually get worse later this year for the holidays. Even though there might be a larger supply, there still will be such a huge demand that it will still have these bots that are going to be sucking them all up and charging you double, triple the price. And that's going to make it really hard for anyone like me and you to want to get a PS5 or an Xbox Series at the original price. And that's something that's unfair to me, and that's something that's unfair to consumers all over, and we do not appreciate it. But I want to go ahead into this. If you're out there and you have those same frustrations as consumers as we are in the early start of this console generation, please share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, we talked about already the frustrations early on in this next console generation, plus some of the reasons why Sony might have grabbed a market share ahead of this. They grabbed an early market share of the lead when it comes to this next console generation. But the next question I want to ask you this, and I know you're saying this slighted from an Xbox fanboy, as you would say, person, but I wanted to say this. We did talk about and discuss Sony taking the early lead, but I see Xbox having the best chance to compete on a level, an even level, with Nintendo and Sony for the first time ever, as far as since they've been releasing consoles since 2000, 2001, when they started going ahead and releasing the original Xbox, the OG, which I absolutely loved, was so endeared to. But I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Xbox has a realistic chance of making a favorable impression, moving up in the marketplace, and actually maybe even surpassing at some point the PlayStation 5?
Yeah, so because I feel like when summer rolls around and we get these like summer gaming conferences, we're going to see both Sony and Microsoft call out a lot of cancellations. But I think that my hope is Microsoft is really gearing up for the holiday season. So once that stuff comes out, and I'm almost can say with confidence that like God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn will probably get their release dates pushed back. That being said, I think holiday season is going to be Microsoft's time to shine here, and whatever ground they had lost so far in the past few months, they're going to be able to hopefully recover. But again, none of that really matters if people can't get their hands on the consoles. So I guess it all depends on like how much of what they're making is going to also be available on the Xbox One.
Exactly, and that's going to be a key factor. I know that Xbox, of the two between Sony and Xbox, they've made more aggressive moves at the start of this next generation to ensure a little bit more longevity. Plus, also, they've done things that I think have garnered some interest from fans who have not purchased an Xbox at any point in time. I hear a lot more chatter. I hear a lot more scuttlebutt, as they used to say back in the day, of gamers just saying, you know what, I might be really interested to pick up an Xbox. And I think this is somewhere that PlayStation is a little bit lax on. And I think that's something that maybe is because of arrogance, because they sold over 100 million units in the last generation or what have you, is the options and the value that's available for it. Something I've touched on previously with Xboxes, because I thought the Xbox One S, I think, was to me the best value as far as a console is concerned. In this generation, it's not necessarily about which console is the best value, but which console offers the best features. And people are talking a lot about Xbox Games Pass. Let me hear your thoughts on Xbox Games Pass, because it is their subscription. It is what they want you to go ahead and choose going forward. Whether you're playing on a PC, whether you're playing on a phone, whether you're playing on a tablet, whether you're playing on the Xbox Series S or X, this is something that they really want to push, because this could be the future of the way that they do business going forward.
Yeah, I don't really think the Xbox Games Pass business model really makes sense to anybody, but it is something that it's like Netflix for games. You're paying, you bundle that with in the Ultimate bundle, and you get access to Games Pass on PC and Xbox, and you also get access to like the cloud gaming service where you can play on your phone. And that's something that Sony can't really boast about having. I know they're talking about how they have some kind of movie program for a little bit, but
well, that's right now in Poland, because of the certain laws and bylines of that I think Netflix and other streaming outlets can't get to. So they were offering movies, or they were really going to start that up as far as PlayStation Plus, offering movies as part of that program for the PlayStation Plus. We were talking about on the show here how that might be something they want to incorporate on the Sony end going forward for all of its consumers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that might be something interesting to approach. And I at that point, I wonder if Microsoft would jump on something like that as well, by either tying their services to, another streaming platform, or having one of their own. But I think that Games Pass is a great deal. There are times you used to be able to, case in point, the Resident Evil demos, right? Like, you had, in order to play them, you had to sign on at a certain time. You had to, go outside and scream into the sky at a certain time. Like, it made absolutely no sense. There used to be a time when you could play on Xbox. Microsoft offered demos of just about every game before you played it, and not really a lot, not many, people don't do that anymore. So Xbox Games Pass is a great opportunity to be like, hey, I don't know if I want to pay $60 for a physical copy of this game. So maybe I can just download it and see if I like it real quick. Because I've downloaded plenty of games on Games Pass and played them for like 10 minutes and then deleted them because I didn't like them. So if you're someone who, doesn't play demos or is unsure about what they want to play, I think that Games Pass is a great option, because there's something on there for everybody.
Yeah, it's something that I know that it's very intriguing to me. And that's the main reason why I want an Xbox Series X over a PlayStation 5 at this point in time, is that value, is the fact that by buying and purchasing the service, I will have access to over 100 games right away. I know PlayStation has something that kind of is something similar with PlayStation Now, but and it does have some modern games that they're incorporating to it, but the lineup with Xbox and its Games Pass is so much more advanced than what we see from PlayStation Now.
Right. And the cool thing about it is a lot of these games, especially if they're, under the umbrella of Microsoft, you get them on day one. So, I mean, what more could you ask for, something like that? You don't have to go to the store to pick up the game. You don't,
or pay $60 or $70.
You pay $60 or $70, and you can also preload these games before they come out, so you don't have to sit there and wait for it to install, which is great. I mean, that's something that, like, I don't know, I've been waiting for that for a really long time. So it's a great value. And what's even better is that you can play these games across platforms. Like, you can play them on your Xbox and you can play against somebody on a PC. Like, Sony is very picky about letting people play crossplay with really anything. So this is something that Microsoft has done a great job with. And, they've even built an ecosystem around Nintendo, also letting you play games with people on the Switch.
Absolutely. So we're going to be evaluating that as we go forward, as far as what are the reasons why you're leaning towards a PlayStation, or why you're leaning towards an Xbox Series X or S. It's very interesting to see why, back and forth, one person leans one over the other. Is it brand loyalty? Is it options? For me, it's about options right now. And I think the options right now are more enticing for me to spend and drop $500 on the Xbox which is what I'm leaning towards right now, simply because of the fact that you do have that Xbox Games Pass.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, do you think that's just going to become a bigger key to the reason why Xbox may be able to compete very well with PlayStation 5?
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. Again, like we were talking about earlier, like people who are going out and buying these consoles, they don't exactly have people who are buying them to actually play them. Like they probably don't exactly have a, I don't know, infinite budget. So, you want to get something out of value. And I think as far as games go, Xbox has the best value as of right now because, you buy the console and you have the controller and then you just pay your $15 or what was it, like $12 a month, something around there, and
Yeah.
you get just access to this library of a ton of different games to play. And not only that, but when a new game comes out, you can just download it without having to pay for it. I mean, I don't know how that business model works or how it's even successful, but it's there and it's something that people have utilized.
Ultimately, I'm going to ask you this, and we'll close out this part of the conversation with this. Do you think the Xbox Games Pass will be the key to Xbox? If it does, do you think that Xbox Games Pass will be the key to Xbox winning this next generation of consoles?
I think it's a combination of things. Yeah, I think it's the Games Pass, but it's also all these companies that Microsoft has been purchasing up. Having exclusive rights to Bethesda, for example, games is going to be huge for them, especially if you take something like the next Elder Scrolls and throw it on Games Pass. Like that's going to be something that is huge. So yeah, the Games Pass thing is going to have a big part. Is going to play a key role in this, but also like these companies that Microsoft's buying up, so people making games under the umbrella of Microsoft. I think that's a big contribution to this. Not only that, but they're isolating the competition in their own right. So Sony, I know they're buying up publishers also, but I mean, this is something that is going to get really interesting because, yeah, Sony's putting out exclusive games, but once Microsoft opens the floodgates, anything is going to be possible.
It's going to be interesting to see. I'll equate it to this. I mean, I know this conversation has sounded more Xbox-ish than PlayStation for all you PlayStation fans. And obviously, we don't want to try and come off like that. I mean, I try to stay as even keel as possible. I'm just telling you honestly how I'm leaning when I go ahead and make my first purchase. I will end up purchasing both consoles. That to me is going to be a given. That's something like show me the next Uncharted and I'm there. Show me the next Last of Us and I'm there. Show me the next God of War, which could possibly be at the end of this year. We're there. And it's something where you're seeing the value, to me, is a big key component of this race. And I think that I'll put it to you like this: with Major League Baseball, that MLB The Show, it's one of Sony's cornerstone franchises. Is it a big seller? No. But is it a solid every year seller? Yes. And it's just got released to PlayStation 5. But where can you also find it, Josh?
On Games Pass. What's funny about that is like I booted that up the other day and it still has the Sony menu on it. Like it still says produced by Sony on there when you start the game up.
Ah, the irony. But yes, you just had to pay it as part of the Games Pass subscription fee, whereas you had to go ahead and pay $60 to $70 for it on PlayStation. So as long as there's that, I guess, dichotomy for games that are coming out on both consoles that you're interested in, you're going to see a much better value from it if you go ahead and get it for Xbox. So I think if there's any way that Xbox will go ahead and compete and maybe possibly win this console generation, it'll be because of Xbox Games Pass. What are your thoughts out there on this current console generation that we're now in, 6 months old? Do you think that PlayStation 5 will continue its lead throughout the rest of this generation? Or do you think Xbox stands a chance with its Xbox Games Pass and more that it will actually catch up to and possibly even one day beat the PlayStation 5? We want to hear your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, it is our preview of the games coming out for the rest of this year for both of those consoles. And we'll talk more about that and what games we're excited for after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford along with my friend, the real Josh Shady. Josh Peterson. We want to thank so much all the radio stations. Again, over 40 radio stations we're now on worldwide, and we cannot thank you enough to every single one of them for allowing us to be on your station. And hopefully your listeners are getting entertained by what we're talking about. But before we head on out, my friend, on the back half of the hour, I want to talk to you about some of the games that we're excited for this year, and something we did similarly as far as from the movie standpoint on last week's PCC Multiverse. So I want to say the first problem I think that comes to what we were talking about in the first hour is you go to GameStop right now. So if you go to GameStop and you go to the pre-release schedule, and in the past, 2018, 2019, you would see these pages after pages after pages of upcoming release, month by month, going out row after row after row after row. Does it kind of concern you that as of now, mind you, we haven't had E3 when there's going to probably be a lot of announcements of a lot of games that are coming on the way that they usually do same year. There's going to be, oh yeah, this game is coming out this year for a holiday season, blah, 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 blah. So you will probably get a few of those. Are you concerned right now when you go to a GameStop or you go to whatever outlet that you like and look at the upcoming games that it barely fills up one page?
Yeah, I mean, there's still so many games that are. I'm trying to find the release list right now on Game Informer.
I mean, I'm looking at GameStop right now. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and maybe one more after that, one more title after that, right now, as it stands now. Now, mind you, there will be more announcements of games coming out this year, and some of these games may be canceled or delayed, excuse me. Some of these games might be delayed till 2022. So it'll be a give and take. But to me, when you're talking about right now at a major retailer and they're only previewing less than 20 games, actually right around 20 games, that to me is a big concern.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's so many things that have been unannounced and things that might have their release dates pushed back. We don't really know anything right now about what is coming out. You know, we've had Outriders seem to have gotten a decent success in Returnal, but again, would these games even be getting looked at if it were a normal year of video games?
Preaching to the choir, my friend. I said that about Outriders a couple weeks ago when we profiled it. Is would that game have gotten, like you said, the kind of eyes that people were that would focus on it if it was under normal circumstances?
Right. So, I mean, just looking at stuff that is coming out, especially in May, we have Resident Evil Village, Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. But, I mean, we don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not really that interested. We have
Resident Evil Village. So let me ask you on Resident Evil Village, though. I mean, we've talked about this already, but this could be something that takes real advantage of it because this is a AAA game. Mm-hmm. This looks like a really visually stunning game. I see the detail and the way they're voicing the characters and the facials. This is really a nice deal. I really am very interested and intrigued how well this does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it also, especially looking at how, again, you know, we've talked about how Resident Evil 7 kind of flipped the franchise on its head by switching to first person. The Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes have sorry, my dog's making noise. Like a lot of critical acclaim, and they've been great games. So I mean, I'm really excited to see where they go with this. But yeah, it's a AAA title coming out in a time where there aren't really any AAA titles if you don't count, you know, the Mass Effect remake and the Assassin's Creed add-on that's also coming out that month.
Well, we're going to be happy about this because since your major title release is Outriders or Hitman 3 that are the big releases so far this year, when you have Resident Evil Village come out on the 7th and Mass Effect Legendary Edition, a game which would still get a lot of pub, would still get a lot of news, but in this climate, people are really more excited about it. And that to us is really a great thing because you know, around the 14th, you and I will be talking a lot about Mass Effect.
Oh, yeah, of course. And like the great thing about the Mass Effect Legendary Edition is that it's going to have hours and hours of gameplay. So, I mean, if you scoot up to like June outside of the Final Fantasy add-on and the Mario, whatever they're doing with the Mario Super Rush. I mean, there's not really anything that's going to come out that's really going to be time consuming. So having that Mass Effect game to kind of fill that gap is going to be a really great thing.
I'm excited for it. You know, I look at the Mass Effect behind me, and
Yeah.
you and I have been just ad nauseum. It's so funny. Think of the irony in this. Okay, within a span of a month, we're going to get the Black Widow movie you and I have been talking about that should have happened since 2016, since we started the show.
Yeah.
200 episodes plus ago, we talked about Black Widow, and now it's finally coming to fruition. And after the failure of Andromeda, we've been talking ad nauseum for years about reviving the Mass Effect franchise with a possible reboot of this trilogy, and we're getting it both within the span of a month.
Yeah, and if anything's going to create interest in another Mass Effect game, you know, putting out this Legendary Edition with all 3 original games is going to be the thing that does it.
You know, you've been my friend for a long time now, but I'm going to have to tell you this with Mass Effect, the Legendary Edition coming out, and Black Widow coming out within a month. I know we talked about this in the past a couple weeks in regard to this, but I think for the first time in a long time, I'm going to have geek overload. I might have to take a day off work. I mean, you and I don't like to use the term geek or nerds really that much, especially me, because I've told you, if you check out our conversation a couple weeks ago, you'll understand why. But I really think I'm going to go into a pop culture overload. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, it is going to be very cool when Resident Evil Village, Returnal, and Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Returnal is already out right now, and Resident Evil Village is coming out on the 7th, and Mass Effect on the 14th. We are so excited about that. I know Biomutant, which is coming out later in the month, right around Memorial Day. That's something some people are interested in. I've seen some video of it already. Looks okay. It looks pretty good. I know that it heats up in June a little bit with Chivalry 2. Do not underestimate Chivalry 2, especially if you're a PC player out there. That's going to be a game I think that's going to connect with a lot of people, especially from the first-person standpoint as far as the old, classical, duels that you used to have back in the day. It reminds me so much of what's For Honor. But from a first person's perspective, and the detail on the combat, if you get to check out some of the videos on that, is really good.
Did you ever get a chance to play Kingdom Come Deliverance?
No, unfortunately.
It's kind of what that reminds me of. They made this really in-depth combat system on there, and that's kind of what Chivalry 2 reminds me of.
Coming up later in June, though, on the 22nd and 30th, we have on the 30th Dying Light 2, but just before that, it's another zombie game. But this one comes from a lot of the people behind a series you and I absolutely love, the Left 4 Dead series. It's called Back 4 Blood. I don't know if you've caught any of the videos, but this is, again, and a lot of the individuals that made the Left 4 Dead series, this is the next level for Left 4 Dead. It looks and it feels like Left 4 Dead. That gets me excited, and that's coming out on the 22nd.
I haven't seen any trailers for it yet, but I have been reading about it. And, you were a bigger fan of Left 4 Dead than I was. I enjoyed my time with it. But yeah, I mean, if they can remake, because there's not a lot of games like that out there anymore. The zombie thing was fun for a while, but then people just stopped making games like that. And, if this revitalizes that, then who knows? I mean, the battle royale genre might get put to rest in exchange for bringing zombies back.
Well, you'll see that back to back with Back 4 Blood and then Dying Light 2. I'm not as big on Dying Light 2, but I am really intrigued on Back 4 Blood. Coming up, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Dying Light 2 is a game that's been pushed back for years and years. Remember that was announced at E3 a few years ago, and we still haven't seen anything out of that.
What's the island game? The island game from them as well.
I don't know.
The zombie game where they're on the island. Dead Island.
Dead Island, yeah.
Dead Island. Remember that sequel with the guy that was running, and they were talking about that. The guy was running, and then all of a sudden everybody's turning into a zombie behind him. And Dead Island, was it 2? Dead Island 2, I think. That coming to fruition. Hopefully That one was, I think, pushed back forever. So you're right, with Dying Light 2, that's been pushed back forever as well. So glad to see it finally come out, and hopefully that will bring, like you said, a lot more interest back into the zombie genre. But heading into the rest of the year, all these don't really have steady release dates. Now, mind you, we're not even talking about a Madden or the sports games that are coming up, FIFA, NBA. I know something as well that is not on here as of yet, but has been already announced, is a new WWE 2K22. That already has been announced. That was announced at WrestleMania. So we'll see if they can repair their reputation after the absolutely horrid versions of the WWE we've been seeing at the latter half of the last decade. So we'll see how that goes. I don't hold much faith, but we'll have to give it another chance, especially if you're into the wrestling game genre. But I mean, for me, what I see as far as the release dates for some of these games, there's not much there left that's given solidified release dates. So that's why I think E3, after years, and I'm talking years of being almost insignificant, I think that this E3, for the first time in a long time, could be really key for the rest of this year.
Yeah, because I mean, look here, we have a lot of unannounced games, like you said. We have Aliens Fireteam. We have what are we looking at here?
I mean, we're going to see a lot more Halo.
Yeah, Halo Infinite for sure, and we're hearing more about Fable and the next Forza, and Deathloop is one, and the Cyberpunk 2077 next gen upgrade, and whatever else is out there. I'm trying to get Elden Ring is one. Looking down here, we got Final Fantasy 7, we got those Final Fantasy mobile games, God of War. There's a lot, right? And Grand Theft Auto 5. There's a lot of things that six, that have been talked about but have not gotten any solid release dates. So I'm sure that whether those release dates are announced for 2021 or somewhere into 2022 or 2023, we're gonna hopefully at least get some release dates come E3 this year.
GTA 5, Grand Theft Auto 5, was one of the most successful video games of all time in history.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, remember the next gen one's coming out. They haven't given us a release date for that.
Yeah. The thing was, while they're doing that in cooperation with each other, as far as announcing a GTA PS5 Xbox Series X upgrade, do you think they will announce a GTA 6 in conjunction with that?
That would be smart. I have a hard time imagining them not having worked on a GTA 6 in all this time.
I think that I know that they're working on it. You know that they're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of when. How much more can they grease out of? How much more? We always talk about the towel, wringing the wet towel, and how much more cash that we always talk about and kid about Skyrim. And how many more platforms that can it be upon? There's Sky. They might even do a Skyrim. As far as a upgraded version of that, you never know if they can grease one more version out of it. But with GTA 5, we're going to get that version to get it probably on the final new platform for it before we get a GTA 6. So that would be something to see as far as how Rockstar will incorporate the world of GTA into a new console. I think we're going to get some glimpses of that and what works and what doesn't work with GTA 5 when it comes to the newer consoles. But I'm really excited for what could happen with GTA 6. I think that, again, I know people will say, oh, it's GTA, but it's the most popular game on the planet for a reason.
Yeah, and they would be foolish not to at least make some kind of announcement. Bethesda makes their announcements far too soon, but I think Grand Theft Auto is something that people at least want to know exists.
Well, I'm going to ask you this before we head to the break and go ahead and close out the show right after that. Are there any other games that you see have a definitive timeline for 2021, or that or that you really feel that might come out this year that you're really looking towards? I mean, for me, one that is going under the radar, which doesn't have a set release date, but it is saying that it's going to be a 2021 release as of now, mind you, because there's always delays, is Road Redemption. And I don't know if everybody remembers the old classic game Road Rash, but this harkens back to that old game. I don't know if it's being done by EA or not, because, actually, no, it's not being done by EA, but it has definitely got that type of spirit that Road Rash is all about.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to find out if it's related to the. Oh,
It looks like it.
Spiritual successor, they're calling it.
Yeah. So spiritual successor to that. I mean, that's something that we haven't seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I remember playing Road Rash on Sega. Like, I loved that game. And if this is done anywhere near, how those games are done, it'd be fun. It would also, looking at this, it would also be nice as a reboot of those ESPN Extreme games where you could go down this on the skateboards and the luges and like punch and kick your opponents. Like, that would be cool too.
Is there anything else that you?
Yeah. So, I mean, Halo Infinite is obviously something I'm interested in. I'm curious if they're going to be putting out a Forza come October. I feel like they're going to. They need to. Other than that, like Sony keeps promising a God of War in 2021, but I don't think it's going to happen. I just keep waiting for that release date to get pushed back.
Do you think they're going to tell us something maybe around the time of E3 at their own showcase, because they're not being part of E3 once again?
Yeah, on their own showcase, we're going to get something God of War related, but I have a feeling it's going to say 2022 on it.
Oh, well, I'd be excited to hear more about a new God of War. I mean, again, I'm kind of concerned that there are not as many announced games coming up this year, which I understand that everything has been delayed back due to the coronavirus. I get that. And a lot of these studios were taken aback just as much as the real world was. But yeah. I mean, are you surprised that none of them, I'm saying none of them, but a great deal of them were not really prepared to handle what was going on?
Yeah, I think they underestimated just like how much they would have to shut down. They had stuff that was in production already that they're getting out this year, but I think that it's near the end of this year and into next year, we're really going to be seeing the effects of last year's, shutdown.
What are your thoughts out there on any games that you're excited for this coming year that we think, or we're pretty sure are going to come out this time of year? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up next, we're going to close out the show with some final thoughts on this console generation. I want to ask Josh to delve more into it one last time on why he thinks this console generation is what it is, but also, is this the best console generation ever? I'm going to give him that question and see how he answers it coming up after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. Once again, it's Gerald Glassford along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Peterson. If you have any questions for us, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate at all to give us a shout out. Pop Culture Cosmos, anywhere you get your podcasts. Plus, also as well, you got to check out the awesome RPG, tabletop RPGs that we do all week long, seemingly. There's so many that are out there. We're several days a week. Check us out. Pop Culture Cosmos on Twitch, Pop Culture Cosmos on YouTube, and Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. We would truly appreciate your feedback. We would truly appreciate it if you want to join us on one of our adventures. We're looking forward to it. Plus, we might have some good things in store. Trying to see if we can arrange a charity game of Mass Effect tabletop RPG. That's still possibly underway. We'll go ahead and give you the lowdown on that coming up on our social media, but definitely looking forward to seeing what we can do in tabletop RPGs right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but before we head on out, I put the question to you, and I'm putting this serious question to you. Not only just the fact that there is a current console generation going on with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series, and also let's not forget the Nintendo Switch. It's there. I know they're coming out with their own upgraded Nintendo Switch, as heavily rumored. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg has talked about it at length with the upgraded graphics. So they're now up to 720. Woohoo! Woohoo! As far as the Nintendo Switch is concerned, with a new upgraded Switch, they're not coming out with a new console on their own anytime soon, because they're still making hand over fist with the Switch. But I want to hear your thoughts as it currently stands now with this current console generation. And I'm talking about the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series and what's to come from this. Do you think this is the best console generation, or at least shaping up to it, the best console generation ever?
No, I don't think so. I would think even the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 out the gate had had things to play, that had decent things out there to play. What defines the best console generation for me would have to be the Xbox 360 era, because that was when that they had just game after game after game, stuff you could play on the couch with your friends, stuff you could play online with your friends. Like there was never a dry span of games for the Xbox 360 and I guess even the PlayStation 3. Like there's always something coming out to play. And this might be due to Corona, so possibly this could be like a great generation of consoles as time progresses. But as of right now, like there's nothing. I don't know. It just doesn't feel. It doesn't feel good. If I don't know, like how it's supposed to feel.
It feels barren. It feels barren.
It feels barren and cold. Like the 360 era, like it felt very like warm, and it encouraged you to play with your friends. And whereas like Xbox One, everything just feels Xbox Series X, and the PlayStation 5, everyone feels so barren and confusing. And I don't know, it just doesn't, it's not, they're not accessible right now. And hopefully that'll change. But again, like the 360 era it was probably my favorite era of video games, because again, like there's a lot of stuff you could play with your friends on the couch. You could play with your friends online. There's always something to play. There's a game out there for everybody.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, because of the fact that, we are at a situation right now that it is Nintendo, Sony, and Xbox. Is that your favorite one when you had the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and the Nintendo Wii? I think at that point in time, right around then, I think the Nintendo Wii came out a little bit later, but it was still considered part of that generation.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being excited about the Wii. Then, like, I got over the whole notion of having to move while I played video games. But I don't know. It was a time when like all three of these consoles were like, the Wii was hard to find, but you could find one, and like you could go into a Best Buy or a Target or a Walmart, and they just have rows and rows of video games, because it wasn't all done through a digital marketplace. Like you can buy. Like at Best Buy, I worked at Best Buy, and they just had rows and rows and rows of video games in there. And like Wii had its own row, PlayStation had its own row, Xbox had its own row. Like there were games out there of every shape and color, and there's a flavor out there for everybody. And that felt so welcoming to people who were veteran gamers, people who are new gamers, people who are casual gamers. And you go look at these new consoles, and I don't know, it feels cold. Like it feels uninviting. It feels very isolating.
I'm not going to say I disagree with you, because the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii era, that's where you really saw that I guess the popularity of each. People were wanting to go ahead and buy the PlayStation 3, but they were really upset with a huge price on it. But there were still plenty of games that started out in that era that we still see today. And with Xbox 360, we saw the evolution of what happened. Yes, there were issues technically with the Red Ring of Death with Xbox 360 and all that, but there were really a lot of solid games on that platform that we now see today evolving into. So I have a lot of fun. I think that's probably the platform and the console generation I spent the most time on it, or close to it, because I spent quite a deal of time on the original Xbox with Halo 2. So I'm going to say right now that it's right in there with me as well. And then, of course, the Nintendo Wii, that took the world over by storm. I mean, we talk about something that was the fastest selling of all time. I would probably say and argue back at you, I think it's a Nintendo Wii, because the fact is it didn't have really the online marketplace advantage that we do now. You couldn't have the bots or even real people buying it online in as much, volume as what you see now. People used to, for the most part, still even then, because that's around the time when I was running my game stores, that's when people would call me all the time. And we opened up our it got to the point with the Nintendo Wii where it got to the point where we were actually doing our opening. Hi, thanks for shopping, where I worked at, hi, thanks for shopping Game Crazy. Thanks for choosing Game Crazy. We're out of Wii's. How can I help you? I mean, it got to the point we were answering 30 to 50 calls a day. Mm-hmm. Do you have the Wii? 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 And that was a national phenomenon for a console that, yes, everybody had, including myself. But was it was it a graphical leap forward? No, it was something that was approachable to a worldwide audience.
Yeah, it was a good entry point for people who wanted to get into, people much like myself who missed out on the N64 and the GameCube and wanted to get into Nintendo games. But it was also accessible from somebody who didn't play video games. Like, look at the Wii Fit, the Wii Sports. Like, there was something out there for everybody, you know. Like,
it's so funny because I remember the time early on at the Retro City Games when they opened their new store, which is now their old store because it's been there forever now. And they had a stack almost going up to my height at 6'2" of Wii Fit boards.
Oh, I know. You go to any like used game store now and you'll see a whole like graveyard of Wii Fit boards. But remember when those came out, like that was something that it wasn't kids that wanted them. It was the kids' parents that wanted them. And
I wanted one.
Yeah, and people were buying them for as Christmas presents, birthday presents, whatever it was. Like, hey, I want to get my wife a Wii Fit, or hey, I want to get my mom a Wii Fit. Like, you know, and I don't know if that's an insulting gift to get somebody, but it was something that, yeah, I don't know. It
because they were interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it did well, and then people were like, oh, okay, I'm kind of tired of exercising now, and then it just, nobody touched them ever again. Like, so you can go on eBay and find one for like, I want to say I saw one for like $15.
Really? That's too expensive. Now, Guitar Hero is a different story. Guitar Hero, that was, okay, it overdid the marketplace, and everybody had one, and that and Rock Band, and everybody had one, and it died out, and obviously was tried to revive, but the revival didn't work out. And for a while, the marketplace was similar to what we saw with Wii Fit, but now there's been a resurgence in that where it's truly hard to find, and people are price gouging it like crazy.
Guitar Hero?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those games, like, yeah, I loved those games, and I would play those games forever. Anytime, you know, a Metallica add-on came out or the Van Halen add-on came out, like, I was obsessed because those games, like, outside playing the games on like the highest difficulty, the achievements, man, you can just go through and you could earn the achievements fairly easy. Yeah, and I remember when people just started to discover on like Rock Band, you didn't actually have to sing. You just had to like make your voice match the tone of the screen to just go,
Didn't have to say the words, just the right pitch. That's all they were looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, with the drums, you're not actually playing the drums. You're trying to find it to the rhythm, right, to the beat. You know, it was fun. It was fun for what it was, an experience. But again, it's so crazy because I was looking for TJ, and Retro City Games is like, we're almost sold out of everything. And the guitars, forget about it. They're sold out of stock.
Jeez, yeah, that's insane. Like, I've been wanting to go back and get one, but or just so I could have it, but I don't think I'm not in any hurry. I got too much of a back catalog to play it. But, you know, on Rock Band, I just remember the having that Coheed and Cambria song like on the first like set list, and people were like, who are these guys? You know, meanwhile, the rest of like the emo world had been into Coheed and Cambria for a really long time, but I think games like Rock Band really put these like lesser known bands on the map.
So I agree with you, my friend. I think that Xbox 360, PS3, Wii generation is, in my opinion, and your opinion too, the best console generation ever. We want to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. If it was then in the mid-2000s to 2005 to 2010, if that was the best era for video games and that generation, or do you think another generation, like for instance the Genesis Nintendo generation, that console generation, was that better? Or was there any other console generation that you feel was better for video games and for you as a game player? Share us your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode. I cannot thank you enough for coming on the special day and time for us to be able to record this. But I've got a surprise for you, my friend, for our next episode. First off, don't forget, Friday we have PCC Multiverse. Marcus and I will be back going ahead and breaking down the latest news and entertainment in the world of pop culture. But Before we head on out, next week's Pop Culture Cosmos, you and I, hopefully you will be able to record it at a special day and time because I have granted your wish, my friend. I have contacted Ben Arnault from the Smoking Hot Confessions, and he wants to meet up with us live on the show next week.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, let me know. Send me those details.
I will send you the details. It's going to be for you on a Saturday and for him on a Sunday. Let's put it that way. So it'll be a Saturday afternoon taping for us. It'll be a Sunday for him. But that might mean you might have, like me, I'm thinking about actually, and I promised him this, when I went ahead and talked to him, I would have the grill running at the same time.
Oh, nice.
So we'll see what happens, my friend. But it's been an awesome episode. Back to back. We did a great job, both you and I. And thank you so much to Marcus as well. And again, we appreciate everyone watching and listening, especially those viewers. We've had the entire 2 hours as we tape both shows together. But any last thoughts on the way out?
No, I mean, I think we covered it all. There's a lot going on here. As far as like gaming consoles are concerned, like send us an email, everyone. Let us know your thoughts. Like, who do you think is going to come out this holiday season as the big gaming powerhouse?
Definitely want to hear your thoughts on that because we have our own. And as it changes and as it moves forward in the video game industry this year with all the big news that is yet to be announced and all the big changes that are yet to be made, we're going to update you right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day. And big thank you to those who watched us the entire stream. We truly appreciate it. Big shout out to you and have a great weekend.